Hey, and welcome to part 4 of the 5-part series, Success in the Storms. I am so excited that you are following with me on this journey. And I want to encourage you, if you're watching this on the shorts or the reels, go see the full video on my YouTube channel at Healthy Christianity. It's going to bless you and bring it all together. What we're talking about is really just having an honest conversation that storms will invade the life of even believers, that problems, troubles, tribulations are not exclusive to sinners. Yeah, the way of the transgressor is hard, but we're all are going to endure problems. We're all going to face life. We're all going to have to deal with situations, circumstances that are uncomfortable, unfamiliar, that trouble us, that frustrate us. But the idea is to not give in, to not give up to the influence and the counsel of your present situation. Know that in everything that you face, that God has a purpose for allowing it. Everything that you face, that God has designed it and repurposed it to work together for your good. And so the premise of this 5-part series is to convey one major principle, is that in every situation, God has designed you to be successful. And this is what we want to make sure that you are living your life on purpose and not living your life in response or hostage to your situation. When we live our lives hostage to our situation, then we allow it to run its course before we decide that we're going to be okay. We put our obedience on pause. We put our assignment on pause because we will fall into a place of survival and selfishness where I've got to deal with what's facing me, this fire that's facing me right now. And I have to deal with that before I decide to obey God, or before I decide to sacrifice, or before I decide to operate in my assignment. But the sobering truth is, excuse me, the sobering truth is your assignment doesn't stop because you're in a storm. The people that He has called you to are not to be put on the shelf until you decide that you're ready to start obeying Him again. He calls us to a level of faith in Him that regardless of what's happening, what we see, our perspective, what we're thinking about, what we want, our expectations, and that we continue to do what He's called us to do and be who He has called us to be. And so part 4, the fourth principle that I want to convey to you out of this 5-part series is to help you understand you're not using your faith right. You're misusing your faith. And so this is the principle that we're going to talk about. We understand that from Hebrews 11:1, it says that faith is the substance of things hoped for, and it is the evidence of things not seen. But here's how you're misusing your faith. You see faith as a point of believing what you already have access to. You see faith as a point of rejoicing over what is comfortable and what is common, and what is the point of blessing. Faith, excuse me, is not for when everything's going right. I'm sorry if you were presented this idea of faith to suggest that you need it to promote you in an area that's already working. No, again, let's go back to the scripture. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. When you think about that language, we don't hope for what we already have. Hope is future language. We hope for those things that we do not have yet. And there are some things that are tempted to frustrate you because you see the need of it and you're wondering, God, why haven't you done anything about it yet? You see the lack and you're wondering, God, you got a cattle on 1,000 hill. Why haven't you supplied this need yet? And it begins to affect your hope, which is your view of the future, your expectation of the future. But faith is the substance. What makes up faith is it is the substance of what you hope for. It is not in what you have. You do not need faith for what you already have. You need faith for what you lack. You need faith for where you come up short. You need faith for where there's an insufficiency. You need faith for where there is a depletion. You need faith when your back is against the wall and you just don't know which way to turn. That's where your faith is designed for. And we misuse our faith if we only use it as a point of praising God after the fact. We misuse our faith as a point of, well, man, I survived, but he didn't call you to just survive. He called you to be successful. He didn't call you to just survive. He called you to be an overcomer. He called you to be more than a conqueror. He called you to be violent, for the kingdom of heaven suffers violence, but the violent take it by force. Do you hear the attitude in that? And this is what he's called you for. This is what faith is designed to undergird in you, that when you don't know which way to turn, that you don't stop believing, that when you don't have enough to make ends meet, that you don't throw in the towel and then change up on how you're going to act, behave, and depend on God. No, faith is this predetermined mindset that you have, that it does not matter what the circumstances say, my hope is in Christ and will not be moved. Faith is the predetermined a posture of your heart that says, I don't have it. It's been a long time. I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know how he's going to do it, but I know he said it. I know he's able. Therefore, I will continue to put my trust in him. And if that's not your declaration, you're misusing your faith. Faith is not for what you already have. Faith is the substance of what you hope for, whatever the things are that you're hoping for. That's what your faith is for. You need faith for what you don't have. You need faith for that. But it also says faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And so there are some things that you can't see your way out. You can't see how this is going to be reconciled. You may not see how he's going to make ends meet. You may not see how you're going to get out of this storm. You don't see, and that is where your faith is needed. Oftentimes, what happens is we end up complaining because of what we don't see, or maybe what we do see in the natural, instead of engaging our faith to say, even though I don't see it, I know you're doing something. Even when the old church say, even I'll trust you even when I can't trace you. Because the idea is that God is invisible. He doesn't always show us every detail of his plan. And it is in those times when he does not show us those details, when he puts us on mute, where he decides, I said what I said, and I'm not going to give you any further direction until you choose to obey what I said, or until it's time for the next direction, that we have got to employ our faith. Faith is needed in the gap. What do you mean? What I mean by that is the gap between the promise to the fulfillment. Sometimes that gap may be hours, sometimes that gap may be years, but in between what he said and what he has performed, there is a gap there that is the battlefield in our soul. And that's where we must employ our faith, that I know what you said, and I'm not going to devalue what I heard because it's taken longer than what I expect for it to come to pass. Faith is the evidence of things not seen. You can always see who has faith by their posture, by their language, by their attitude, by their behavior in the middle between the promise and the fulfillment. You can always tell. It is the evidence. It is what tells somebody that, okay, that person has faith. You don't have to go and say that I have faith. It will be evident in the gap. It will be evident in the storm. When you're going through something that you feel like you did not deserve, when you're going through something that is uncomfortable, unfamiliar, it's taking too long, it's too hard, it's coming from too many different directions. It is in that place. Let me ask you, when you can't see your way out because all you see are problems, what do you believe? Because faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, and what it is, the core of it Faith undergirds you, but what undergirds faith is your belief in the character of Christ. And so when God's not moving, when you don't see his hand orchestrating things in your life, your faith, the substance of your faith, what's undergirding your faith is your commitment and your belief, your trust in the character of Christ. Because when I don't see him, I've got to trust his character. When I don't see him moving, when I don't see his hand, I've got to depend on his character, that I know who he is. I know how he operates. I may not like it, but he's consistent in who he is. And this is one thing that we see is the purpose even of the 66 books of the Bible, is that it gives his resume so that we can believe him as he moves, so that we can believe him when he talks, so that we can trust in him even when he seems silent. It does not mean he has abandoned you. He has never left you nor forsake you. Well, how do you know? Because his word says so. And God has never lied. And oftentimes where there is a struggle in us, where the storms begin to rage in our soul, is when we lose sight of his character and we promote his activity to be greater than his personhood. But I'm here to tell you that regardless of what's going on in your circumstance, regardless of what you see him doing or not doing, none of those things add nor take away from his character. How do you know? Because in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In the beginning, when there was nothing but darkness and void, there was God. There was no need for him to perform, to identify who he is. Therefore, there's still no need for him to perform right now. If he did nothing else for you, we would still be in debt for the rest of our lives. You can't thank him enough for what he did for you yesterday. You're in debt to thank him for the things that he's doing for you right now. Did you thank him for that breath you just took? What about this one? You understand? So the idea is that we got to make sure that we do not compartmentalize him in the sense that we conclude that my circumstances equate to his character. It sounds like this. Well, God, if you're a good God, why did you let this happen? If you're a good God, why do bad things happen to good people? We are concluding that the circumstances are the direct evidence of his character. But where that's lacking in our understanding is that there is evil in the world because of sin. And God has no respect of a person, nor does he have hierarchy of sin. So if he is to eradicate evil in the world, that would take us out too. Because when we say certain things like that, we think about the big things. We think about murder and rape and pornography, and we think about child molestation and rape. But we don't think about lying. We don't think about incomplete obedience. We don't think about those little things that we excuse ourselves with because we were uncomfortable, or fear motivating us to operate, or we're speaking out of our emotions. All of that we do that is not rooted and grounded in our faith is sin. And so if he was to deal with all evil, it would take us out too. So it is his mercy that he gives us, that he's also giving other people. It's a part of his character. But what do you believe? And it is the accurate employment of our faith that will enable us to stand in the storm. It is our faith that we use for hard times that will help us in the gap. Your faith was not needed for good times. Your faith is needed for hard times. And oftentimes what happens is we talk faith when everything is going right, but then when things go left, we change up our language. Where was the faith that you promoted, that you talked about when you received the blessing? That is the same faith that you're going to need when you're in lack. The same faith when God worked a miracle and you were triumphant on the top of the mountain is the same faith that you're going to need when you're struggling and you're in the battle in the valley. It's the same faith, but you are misusing your faith if it is only available to you, or you only give yourself access and credence to it in good times. Faith is not needed for good times. Faith is needed for hard times. Faith is needed for the storm. And what we're going to notice is that the presence of the storm begins to attack your loyalties, your definitions, your identity. It becomes a distraction in that way. But when your faith says, I don't care what's happening in my today, I believe God. I don't care what comes or what goes. I trust God. It does not matter what I have or what I lack. I will not allow it to influence my perspective of Him, my willingness to lean not on my own understanding, but in all my ways acknowledge Him and allow Him to direct my path. There are certain things that He is doing in the storm that is necessary for our development. Certain things that are being stripped away from our character, certain things that are being molded and shaped in our personhood, certain people that are being removed from our life. Those things happen in the storm. You look at the Israelites and their relationship with the Egyptians. You know, God was sending them through the Red Sea, and He said that the enemy that you see, you won't see them anymore, because He allowed this storm, He allowed trouble to separate Israel from their enemy. And it is the faith of the Israelites that allowed them to walk through on dry land. But when the enemy tried to walk that same way, they perished. And so maybe sometimes the presence of the storm isn't about you and your comfort. It is about taking you into your next level. It is about answering your prayer. And it takes faith to say, God, I trust you with however you're doing it, whatever mode or method you choose. I trust you. And so I want to challenge you in this fourth principle, that in what you see, what you don't see, what you hear, what you don't hear, that you base your faith not on the inconsistency of temporary situations that change from moment to moment, but that you anchor and define your faith in the uncompromised word of God that speaks to a God that does not change. He is the Lord, I change not. Jesus Christ, the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. And it is there to develop and to concretize our faith in Him. What do you believe? Now, if this is your first time joining me, I want to encourage you to go back and watch the 3 previous videos, because we're giving 5 principles to help us to be successful in storms. And so if this is your first time joining me, thank you. I want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel, share, like, comment. I love interacting with my subscribers, and know that I'm praying for you, and I hope that you're praying for me, because at the end of the day, none of us are exempt from storms. But we have a strategy. God gives us principles that should define and root, have our lives rooted in, that will help us to not hope that we be successful, but that will keep us and guarantee us success in the storm. So this is my time. I appreciate you. Join me next time for principle number 5. And I think I got a bonus principle for you that I want to share on success in the storms. I pray that you've watched the whole series. But this is Dr. Teray Deaver. Thank you for joining me. Until next time. Peace.